Playoff Frenzy Live. It is May 7th, and the Leafs have taken a 2-0 series lead over the Florida Panthers. We are live across all social networks on the Hockey News. I am Andrew McGinnis. I have Ryan Kennedy and Michael Tracos with me to break down this game 2. Guys, looking forward to breaking things down with you. Ryan, how are you? Good to work with you for the first time. Your thoughts on this game tonight?
Yeah, great working with you too, Andrew. My first thought here is that the Leafs' speed is killing the Panthers. And, I talked about this earlier in the week that I think Florida's probably banged up, not only from the attrition of 2 straight runs to the Stanley Cup final, but also that series against Tampa Bay in the first round. And I just feel like the Panthers, they're such a smart team, but when the Leafs get a step on them, that's when they've gotten into trouble. And you think about like the Max Domi goal tonight. That was a prime example of the Leafs, just all of a sudden 0-60, a scoring opportunity, and Domi buried it. I think that's been sort of the theme of the series through 2 games is that the Leafs are getting on top of Florida. And the Panthers have still been in it because their cycle game is great and they've been dominating the ozone time. But it's those quick strikes that have really helped the Leafs overall.
Michael, what are your thoughts here tonight?
Yeah, I agree with Ryan. Like Toronto's been the faster team. They've actually been the more physical team too. I don't know how you guys are seeing this, but I'm looking at the hits, 41 hits to 39. I think going into this series, it was all about, oh boy, how does Toronto match Florida's physicality and what happens if they get sucked into playing a game that they don't want to play? Well, I think Toronto's comfortable playing this game. We've seen it from Max Pacioretty laying the body on Barkov in game 1. And, after that Sam Bennett accidental elbow to the head of Anthony Stolarz, which takes him out of, I think, the series now, I think a lot of us were thinking, okay, there's going to be retribution in game 2. But Toronto played physical, but they didn't play over the edge. Granted, the refs really let the guys play and called some questionable penalties and didn't call some questionable ones that could have been penalties. But, from a physicality standpoint, I think Toronto's playing a perfect game. And to Ryan's point, Florida does look like they are banged up. Like Matthew Tkachuk is healthy, and yet he's obviously not 100% healthy. And he's not looking like the Matthew Tkachuk that we saw last year go to the Cup final. And I think that's playing into Toronto's hands.
Of course, as mentioned, live on X, YouTube, Instagram, even LinkedIn. We want to hear from you guys. That's why we're doing this show every night. We want to hear from your comments, your take, your thoughts on Game 2, Panthers and Maple Leafs. But guys, Playoff Frenzy Live is presented by Stix.com. That's Stix.com. Why break the bank on sticks when you can get pro-level composite sticks without the pro price tag at Stix.com? That's Stix.com. Head over and gear up. Guys, the biggest thing for me that I'm noticing about this Maple Leafs team, and Mitch Marner actually touched on it in the post-game interview, and sometimes you just hear the hockey cliches get thrown out, and it's just an interview. You can predict what they're going to say. But he talked about how calm they look, Michael, and I find that the old Maple Leafs might not have responded well to, the Panthers taking the lead and then taking the lead again. But I'll tell you, every single thing the Panthers did, the Maple Leafs had a response for, whether it's physicality, whether it's scoring, whether it was, being the team that won the neutral zone battle. As far as calmness is concerned, are you seeing a changed Leafs team this year?
Yeah, and Paul Maurice mentioned it to reporters, I think it was yesterday, saying that this is a different team. Like they are patient, they are sticking to the system, and they trust that, even if they are down a goal. And I think that's been a big thing, is that they're not, they're not cheating the game, so to speak. Like they are just playing their style. Good on Toronto for rolling, 4 lines during this series, and good on them for not really panicking. It's a mature team. And, it should be a mature team. We're talking about a team that's been together for not just a couple of years now. Like, granted, they haven't had success, but they've gone through playoff battles. They know how to lose. On the flip side, they're learning how to win now too. So I think that comes down from the coaching staff. It probably also comes down to a guy like having Chris Tanev there. You got Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who won a cup last year with Florida. Anthony Stolarz was part of that team. So you do have some experience. And I saw in the live chat, Max Pacioretty has just been incredible. And, he started the series, not in the lineup, subs in for Nick Robertson, I believe I think it was game 3. And now he's got 6 points in 6 games. I think he's 4th on the team in scoring. Who would have expected that from a guy who was basically injured all year, barely played? I think no one was even thinking of him as a guy that we were going to see in the playoffs. And yet he has been an X factor for Toronto.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot to be impressed about, Ryan, but what has almost kind of not shocked you the most, but the biggest change you've seen from this Leafs team in this playoffs from years past?
Well, I think it all starts with Craig Berube behind the bench. And, Mike talked about that calmness and that coolness that they've had. And, I think it's reflected a lot in the way Berube has talked to the press, where, even dating back to the Ottawa series, he's like, what? We're winning. Like, who cares if we don't win in 5 games? Like, we feel good about ourselves. And there's just there isn't that panic that we've seen in this franchise in the past. And again, like Mike said, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, guys like that. Even the fact that Berube went to Max Pacioretty, and I know a lot of people online were like, what are you doing? Like, why are you, they were good with Nick Robertson in the lineup. It's like, okay, well, yeah, but series change and you need different things. And Pacioretty has seen it all in his career. And when he was healthy with the Leafs, he was pretty effective as a top 6 forward. So that move has paid off well. The other thing I think is different is, and this again goes along with that whole the mental side of the game, is yes, it was a very physical game, but for the most part, it was between the whistles. Like, Toronto didn't get sucked into any shenanigans with Brad Marchand for the most part. They weren't targeting Sam Bennett tonight. They played their game, and when they needed a goal, they went for a goal. And, even when there were penalties, you didn't see a lot of crazy scrums. There's basically just the one after the Scott Laughton hit from behind that I can think of. And again, Florida wants to drag you down because they know how they play best. And if you can avoid that, then you give yourself an opportunity to win.
I wanted to see shenanigans, Ryan.
Hey, we all wanted to.
Don't we all?
I was hoping for a Domi Bennett fight, off the first, whistle, basically.
Right.
First shift.
But that would have been old Leafs, right?
Stuff.
That would have been Max Domi taking an instigator and Florida scoring on the ensuing power play. But instead, you get a Max Domi using his speed, causing turnovers, getting a crucial goal, and hopefully learning that this is how, it's like, I think it was Scott Laughton said it before the game. It's like, we win. That's how we get revenge. And it's like, yeah, that's what you got to do, because Florida is playing on a deficit now. They're down in this series and they want to get you off your game, because the Panthers know that if it comes down to those little details, Florida's probably going to win, because they're so smart and they're so experienced that, it doesn't take, it's like they're the house in the casino. You need to know when to walk away from the Panthers.
Can't walk away. I want shenanigans.
I literally don't know when the next time we're going to get something like what we saw at the Four Nations. I couldn't believe it. One fight, then the other, then the other. That's what Michael wanted tonight. We wanted Sam Bennett having 3 fights back to back to back. That's what we were here for. Guys, I want to give some credit to Joseph Woll, but David's comment has been on the screen here. We're here to address the comments. So I'll just get both you guys' thoughts overall. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. I mean, kind of a weird call. I think it's good that they separated things. They said, you know what? We don't really want penalties to control this game. But start with Michael, then Ryan, your guys' thoughts.
Yeah, I'm trying to kind of galaxy brain it and go, okay, what's going through the referee's mind when they see Evan Rodriguez get slammed from behind, face first into the dashboard? And are they thinking, okay, this is because we goofed on the Sam Bennett, no call in the game before, or is this because we don't want this turning into a chippy affair? I don't understand it. I don't think I'll ever really understand it. Rodriguez, if I'm correct, like he left the ice. He went to the he went back into the dressing room. If that's embellishment, then boy, he's really taken the bit to another level. How'd you see it, Ryan?
I agree. Like when I saw that play, initially when the refs were talking, I was like, "Ooh, he's gonna get 5 minutes." Like maybe that's what they're talking about. Like maybe this is gonna be a major. This could be a series turning point. The fact that they evened it up, like for any Florida Panthers fans that are watching this live stream, yeah, your team got jobbed there.
Oh,
like I don't know why they evened that one up. That was shocking to me. It'll be interesting to see, what the Panthers say, tomorrow when the sort of dust is settled. But I don't understand, and they showed Rodriguez on the ice several times. And it's like, I don't know, like he put his head in his hands, but like, I get it. You just got crushed into the boards.
Is Rodriguez a guy that's got that reputation? Like, Tim Stützle has got a bit of that reputation as a diver. I remember talking to Rodriguez right before the playoffs started because Florida was in town. And I was saying like, hey, you play on a team with, and I think at the time he was playing on the Bennett and Marchand line. And I was like, hey, do you kind of do those guys kind of rub off on you? Do you start playing a little bit chippier? And he was like, yeah, when you have those guys, it's kind of just like bleeds through the lineup. Like you all have to play that way. But I don't remember, I know he plays a little bit with a snarl, but I don't remember him playing possum where he's always like, I'm hurt.
It doesn't come to mind. And he's not a big guy either.
No.
Yeah.
But poor guy.
I was surprised to see that. And again, if that's going to be an embellishment, guys, and I actually, for one, I want to see those called more often. But my biggest pet peeve with embellishment calls, and this isn't just tonight, but throughout the regular season, they always take both guys. How can it be a tripping and an embellishment? It's got to be just one. Or what's the point in calling both? That's what I've always had the biggest problem with it. But you know what? At the end of the day, I think that's the referees trying to make a stance like, hey, guys, maybe this wasn't the right call. But at the end of the day, don't exaggerate a hit just to get the call. And we're going to call you out on that. So, all right, comment here. Is William Nylander quietly becoming the least most consistent offensive threat in this series? I just love the way he turns nothing into something all the time. I know all superstars can do it, but I'm watching Nylander and the way he can just glide around. It's like, okay, he's entering the offensive zone. And then, oh my goodness, he's about to score. Like something exciting just starts to happen. Ryan, what do you think here about Nylander?
Yeah, I wouldn't even say quietly. I think he is loudly becoming the Leafs' most consistent offensive threat. And it's interesting because it feels like, at least for the first two games, the coaches on both sides were happy with Matthews and Barkov going head to head. And I would say Barkov's had the advantage so far. He's had a little more offense, and obviously he scored tonight for Florida. But for Nylander, they don't have an answer so far. And it's the fact that he's so good with the puck, that he hangs on to it, and I'm sorry, I'm a broken record because I say this all the time, but the Leafs love drop passes, and they do it way too much. But Nylander does not. So I think he kind of maybe short circuits defenses where they think like, oh, here comes the drop pass, and then he just keeps going. And it's not a dump and chase with him. He gets the puck, he gets in the zone, allows his time for his teammates to catch up. He's great at being elusive. He can shake defenders, and as you mentioned, Andrew, he's great at creating something out of nothing. And he only needs a split second, as we saw with that goal tonight, where he got up there and he basically just got a blade on it and flicked it over Bobrovsky. It's just that pinpoint precision where he makes that decision that he's going to get that puck up, and all of a sudden it's in the back of the net.
Yeah, and I'll add one thing. The core four has taken a lot of criticism, obviously, for not getting the Leafs over the hump and to the promised land. And since they've been together since, I guess, 2016. William Nylander should be excused from all that criticism, because if you look at his playoff stats, this guy just produces. And last year, he only played in 4 games. He had 3 goals. The year before, 4 goals, 10 points in 11 games. Before that, 7 points in 7 games, then 8 points in 7 games. Like, I could go on and on. It's year after year after year. Like, you can criticize Marner, criticize Matthews, even criticize Tavares or Riley. But with Nylander, like, I would argue he was the MVP for the regular season. And then in the playoffs, he just, there's some guys who, they shrink under the microscope or the bright lights. They can't handle it. Maybe it's because he's the son of an NHLer, but this guy is unflappable. Like, he's built to play in Toronto. I think, it doesn't phase him. If anything, he just rises to the occasion. And we're seeing it this year. Like, I don't know if these are updated, but 6 goals, 13 points in 8 games. That's Conn Smythe level production.
Yeah.
It seems like his game doesn't have to change. He just is who he is. He plays like himself. And I know it sounds funny to say, Michael, because you just talked about his regular season performances and then the playoffs, but some players, they try to be something different. They try to have that physicality a part of their game in the postseason. And Nylander is just Nylander. But guys, I truly believe that overall for this Leafs team, I mean, of course, having confidence in your goaltenders is always a big thing. But when's the last time they had this many points from defensemen in the postseason?
Oh, yeah. And a terrible team for points from a defenseman. Or I think they might have been the worst in the league from goals from the D in the regular season. And, Riley's been outstanding. But what do they have, like 6 or 7 goals now from the D?
And every team needs a Pacioretty. You need a Pacioretty, and you need someone that's going to do that takes pressure off the core 4. And then the core 4 aren't relied upon to be the only ones scoring the goals. So I think it's just so crucial to have guys. If you get a point or 2 from a blue liner a game, you're looking pretty good for that game, I would say. But Ryan Stella here says, what did you make of the Leafs' response after allowing goals, particularly the quick answer to Lundell's game-tying tally? Overall, I mean, we talked a little bit about the responses and that calmness and the professional way of handling things that maybe they would have kind of cracked under pressure in the past. But this team just seems to be playing the same way no matter what time in the game it is.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point, because it's easier said than done, right? You're at home, it's the playoffs, you're excited, you're playing the defending champs, and yet with that crucial goal, it was like seconds later, right? Yeah. It was like the next shift. And I think that's a big thing where you just have to go up and be like, okay, they scored, so what? Let's go. And you have to push too, right? Game 1, Florida made that big comeback. And for a while there, the Leafs were really on their heels. In the game tonight, as you mentioned, Florida scores first, Toronto scores again. Florida scores second, Toronto scores again. Florida ties it up, Toronto gets the go-ahead goal. There is some maturity there, and it's very interesting to see because, again, this is a Florida team that, if you think back to the past 2 runs that they made, there was a stretch. I'm trying to remember the exact stat, but I think like Sergei Bobrovsky at one point hadn't surrendered more than 2 goals in a game for like 12 games in a row, and that was a big part of the Panthers' playoff success. In back-to-back games against Toronto, that has certainly not been the case. And maybe, it feels like they figured him out a bit, and obviously he's going to adapt. But the fact that they can get back into games and not get down by, say, 2 goals, which would probably be death against these very structured Panthers, has allowed them to have that success.
Yeah, how many times over the years have we said, oh, here we go, Toronto's run into a hot goalie? And, it happened 2 years ago, Ryan, like you mentioned. And I think Toronto didn't get more than 2 goals in any of the games against Florida when they played them last. And you're right, like here they are. They found a way to beat a guy who's, what, a 2-time Vezina winner, if I believe, and, one of the best goalies on the planet. And, whether it was Carey Price or Bobrovsky or Tuukka Rask or Swayman, like Toronto's always run into a hot goalie. But, in the first round, they figured out Linus Ullmark, who is just, another stud goalie. And then against Bobrovsky, they're making him look very human. I know our colleague, Ken Campbell, was at the game tonight, Ryan, and his whole story, I believe, for tonight is, is it time to believe in the Maple Leafs? And, it's hard to argue right now. Like, they took a 3-0 lead against the Sens. Here they are in the second round against the defending champs, the team that went back-to-back to the final, and they've got a 2-0 lead going to Sunrise. I'm not finding a single thing that you could really criticize with the Leafs game right now.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I would say early on in this game, it felt like they were a little out of sorts, and maybe you just have to give Florida credit for having that tenacious forecheck and being so good with pressure. And also, I felt like at the beginning, especially in the first period, Florida was really good at kind of gumming up the neutral zone and, not allowing Toronto to really get sort of revved up, because as we said before, like they have a lot of speed on the Leafs and they have a lot of skill. But eventually, like, the Leafs were patient enough that they kind of broke that down. It's going to be very interesting, because if you can get a split in Florida, then you put yourself in a really advantageous situation. And I'm also going to be very curious to see how many Leaf fans go down to Amaranth Arena and cheer them on, because we know over the years that's sort of the running joke that it's like cheaper to fly down to Florida and watch the Leafs than it is to watch them here.
Yeah. Good luck with that. Good luck.
Yeah, you're right, though. There probably will be a lot of snowbirds there. Like, home ice advantage might not be home ice advantage. It wasn't home ice advantage in Ottawa.
Nope.
That's for sure. Well, I mean, that takes us to our next comment. Great segue here, guys. I do want to get to Woll eventually. We need to touch on the goaltending, but we've got these comments coming right now. So what will the Leafs' biggest challenge be heading into Game 3 in Sunrise? How do they maintain momentum in enemy territory? That old adage that's so cliche, about a series, only getting started once you lose at home. I guess, what differences are we going to expect from Florida besides getting that last change here, guys? I mean, we know it's not going to be easy. You talked about getting that split for the Leafs, even, and going up 3-1 can be so crucial. But what's going to be the biggest challenge, guys, for the Leafs to maintain this momentum?
I think it's two things. Obviously, the matchups are going to be important, but I think the bigger thing is we know Paul Maurice is just, he's an outstanding coach, and coaches adapt. And we saw it even in the Ottawa series. Like, what was working in games 1, 2, and 3, all of a sudden didn't work in game 4 and even game 5. I believe Florida is going to have to counteract what Ryan keeps mentioning, which is the speed and gumming up that neutral zone and really kind of making it difficult for the Toronto Maple Leafs to get speed and going into the offensive zone. And we saw it against the Ottawa Senators, where Toronto was trying way too many stretch passes to try to counteract what looked like almost like a trap style. So I imagine Florida is going to really try to slow down the game. The other thing that Toronto just has to worry about is not taking their foot off the gas. They got a 2-0 lead, but you still got to win 2 more games. And the Florida Panthers, they've been in this situation before. Like, a couple years ago against the Boston Bruins, was that series 3-1 that they ended up coming back from? So, being down 2-0 in a series with it going back to Florida, I don't think they're that worried. Having won a cup probably changes their mindset as well. So, for me, it's just, Toronto's just got to keep doing what they're doing and keep getting pucks in net. And, as long as they're beating Bobrovsky, I don't think that they should be worried about their game.
Yeah, I was kind of joking to myself that we'll be watching like Carolina and Dallas in the Stanley Cup, and teams will still be worried about the Panthers. It's like maybe they'll come back. Like
it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
Yeah, there will be adjustments. I think that Florida, if they can slow, I agree. If they can slow the series down, they give themselves a better opportunity. And special teams hasn't been a really big strength for the Leafs in this series, and we know what Barkov can do, not only on the power play but also on the penalty kill. I think there are opportunities where, if again, like the Panthers need to suck the Leafs in, and if it's a lot of penalties and a lot of special teams play, I think Florida would be okay with that. If there's a lot of like nonsense after the whistles, like you want to push the Leafs out of their comfort zone. This is very much sort of a mental game of chess that could go on. And also we'll have to see like how Bobrovsky rebounds. Like I'm not used to him having 2 so-so games in a row. right? Like he's got to tighten up at some point because that's just what he does.
No, I agree with you. And it's like, yeah, you're not going to Vanacek, so it's got to be Bobrovsky.
Yeah.
Like this isn't like a couple years ago where they had Alex Lyons start and then all of a sudden they went to Bob. You know, you're not going to your backup.
Yeah. Alex Lyon isn't walking through that door. And I don't think they're going to a backup right now either, guys. But again, Playoff Frenzy Live, powered by the Hockey News. We are here every single night, not just weeknights. We are on the weekends as well. You guys can find us post-game. And of course, this is the post-game show for Game 2, Panthers and Maple Leafs. All right. I've been slowly trying to get to this for the last 15 minutes. I want to get to it. And I don't know about you guys. I haven't talked to you guys about this, but based on social media, based on people I've spoken to and friends of mine that are Maple Leaf fans, it was nothing against Joseph Woll. It was more a compliment to Anthony Stolarz that there was a little bit of worry heading into this game. And looking at Joseph Woll, a couple of goals he let in Game 1, I give him a pass. You come in cold. It's very difficult for a goaltender to do so. And I thought he played well. And we're talking about frustrations for the Florida Panthers. One thing I'm seeing is that from where I'm looking at this game, Florida actually had to earn a lot of their goals. And a lot of the scrums and sloppiness and kind of in the end of the game, the final 5 minutes, throwing everything on net, none of that really turned into goals. So obviously the Leafs want to have Stolarz being in the net for them. But Ryan, your thoughts overall on Joseph Woll tonight for the Maple Leafs?
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought he played really well. The most important thing, he was the best goalie in the game, right?
Yeah.
Like he played better than Bobrovsky straight up. He gave his chance a team to win, and they did. The thing I always go back to, and it's a good point from your friends there, where Anthony Stolarz obviously had an incredible season for the Leafs. I would say, even better than anticipated when they signed him. And I think he had probably a bigger role than they might have thought because obviously Woll got hurt at one point as well. But Joseph Woll has been very good in the playoffs. And as you mentioned, Game 1, I think they mentioned on the broadcast, he hadn't played in 18 days. Like that's tough for any goaltender. So that was him getting, loosened up. And, tonight he had his proper warm up, his proper practice before that. He was the starter right from the get-go. And we've seen, a player who, even though he's young and doesn't have a ton of NHL experience, he feels like a big game goalie. And, some of the saves he made tonight, just the athleticism, at one point he went into basically a full splits to make a save there. And, he gave them a chance to win. And, that's all you can ask. And I think if you're Toronto, you can be confident that if you have to go with Joseph Woll for the rest of the playoffs, you hope not because you hope Stolarz is healthy. But if you have to go with Joseph Woll, I don't think you're super concerned. I think you can have faith in him.
Michael, 1 to 10, worriness going into tonight with Woll. How are you feeling?
I was at a 0 worry, and very much for what Ryan said. Like, I think people forget that Woll actually played more games this year than Stolarz, and up until the maybe final 2 weeks of the season, maybe 3 weeks of the season, it was very much looking like Woll was going to be the Game 1 starter because, again, to Ryan's point, up until last season when he got injured in Game 7, he almost took the Leafs past the Bruins when Samsonov, couldn't get the job done. They went to Woll. So I don't think they have a worry. This is a Toronto team where it's like, it almost reminds me of the Penguins when it's either Crosby's healthy and Malkin goes on fire or Malkin's injured and then Crosby goes on fire. Like it's almost like rare that Stolarz and Woll have both been healthy and at the top of their game at the same time. So this isn't anything new. Like, Woll started the season injured and Stolarz carried the mail, and then it was like vice versa. And one was hot, one was struggling for their game. So this is just kind of like the pattern that they've had. And I don't think the Leaf players have any concern with Joseph Woll. Like, he very much looks like the goalie of the future for them. Like, he's younger than Stolarz, and I think that he probably has a bigger potential. So, whether it's Woll, whether it's Stolarz, this is the beauty of having a tandem and arguably the best tandem in the NHL this year.
We talked a little bit, of course, what the Panthers will have to do back at home, but We have mentioned some great things the Maple Leafs did in the first 2 games. Michael, I'll start with you. Then Ryan, your thoughts. Who has to step up the most for the Panthers? I mean, which player? Let's call some guys out here. Who has to step up to get going for the Florida Panthers?
I'm going Sam Reinhart. Oh, sorry, Ryan.
Yeah, no, Reinhardt's gonna. I'll leave you. I'll leave Reinhardt for you. I was gonna say Carter Verhaeghe, who has been like a playoff killer over the years, and one of those players that kind of slipped through the Leafs' developmental cracks there years ago. But you need more goal scoring because you're seeing like Brad Marchand carrying a lot of the mail so far for the Panthers, and you gotta get some of those other guys involved. And Barkov got on the board tonight. Obviously, that helps. But it's those, you can't even call them secondary guys because they're very accomplished scorers in their own right. But a guy like Verhaeghe or Reinhart.
Yeah, like Reinhart, 57 goals last year. He had 39 goals this year. The guy's a goal scorer. He's got 2 goals in the playoffs in 7 games. And, those are still good numbers. But for a Florida team that, is basically caught in a track meet. And I think that's the other thing. Like, I don't think Florida wants to be playing these like 5-4 games with the Leafs.
No.
Whether on the winning side or the losing side. I don't think, that's not a recipe for success. But, if they are going to be in these kind of games, then you definitely need more goals, whether it's from Verhaeghe, whether it's, continued from Barkov, whether it's from Tkachuk, and especially from a guy in Reinhart who was the runner-up for the Rocket Richard a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't always work out this way, but as you guys know, I'm a little bit in the betting game, and I do think sometimes for a certain team to have success, you kind of correlate with low scoring for this team or high scoring for that team. And we all know the Maple Leafs have proven that they can win low scoring games, but I do think that the first to 4 goals is not going to benefit the Florida Panthers. You look around the league. I keep asking myself every time the Oilers play, are they going to be able to keep getting away with this? Like, the Oilers are just like first to 5, first to 6. That's going to be they don't care what you do because we're going to get to 6 or 5 or whatever it may be. But of course, guys, we have another game going on right now that just went to intermission. Luckily, we didn't miss too much action. At least the scoreboard doesn't dictate that. So 0-0 so far, Stars and Jets. Today, I was talking about how both teams are coming off such exciting finishes, obviously game 7s. And if you thought Dallas's comeback was great, Winnipeg said, hold my beer, 1.6 seconds left in our game. Ours was better. What were your guys' approaches going into this series? Michael, start with you.
I'm excited about this series, and I'm more excited that it's Winnipeg against Dallas than if it were St. Louis against Dallas. This Winnipeg team, I felt really bad. I was going to feel really bad if they didn't get past St. Louis. Like, Connor Hellebuyck was going to wear this all summer. The fact that they were able to come back and do what they did, it's great for Hellebuyck, but for a guy like Cole Perfetti, especially, like we're seeing sort of the coming out party for a young guy who, was just magical in that game 7. So, I'm high on both teams. I know Ryan's been calling Dallas to be a Stanley Cup winner for years now, but, Hockey News at one time said, here's your Stanley Cup champions, the Winnipeg Jets. And I think that was like back in 2017 or something. So, but both teams have been, Future Watch. So, both teams have been kind of waiting for this moment, and both teams have the roster to win it. Like, this says Western Conference Final written all over it. This is almost like a Stanley Cup final. I'm excited about this series. If I had to pick who's going to win, I might give the slight edge to Dallas just because, man, oh man, Mikko Rantanen just looks like a complete beast out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good call. It's hard to think about this series because they are such good teams. The only thing I'm sort of leaning on right now is okay, well, Dallas beat Colorado, and the Avalanche were, they're a beastly team. They have McKinnon, they have Makar. Netchus, obviously filled in for Rantanen after the trade. Whereas St. Louis, props to them for even making the playoffs. They had to go on that incredible run. And St. Louis, they are built for the postseason. But it just felt like for Dallas, it's almost like they've gone on hot wings, but like it's like in reverse now, where it's like they've done the worst wing and now they're going, it's like well, this
That's
isn't
awesome.
as hot. It's still pretty spicy, but we already dealt with like the bomb, so I'm interested to see if that has any impact. And then obviously, which team gets healthier faster, and when we see major contributions from Scheifele, Robertson, Heiskanen, Morrissey, I think that'll be a big X factor, even though both teams won without any of those guys, which was kind of hilarious.
Oh, did you say Winnipeg is going through hot wings in reverse?
No, Dallas.
Oh, Dallas. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like they took on
great
Colorado.
analogy.
They used that, and then Winnipeg is like still like a lot of Scovilles, but not as much as Colorado.
So who's next for them on this? Would it be Edmonton? Would it be the even hotter?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe,
Yeah.
or like on par with, because I mean, Edmonton's clearly, I mean, they're on like an incredible run right now, but like they've also been very good at making sure that Pickard hasn't had to face like an onslaught of shots, right? Like Edmonton are playing periods where the other team is getting like 3 shots on net. And it's a fantastic way to win a game, I will say.
The scary thing too, guys, I think that Dallas hasn't even looked their best. Like, let's be honest. Like when they were up 2-1 in the series against Colorado, they were leading for 70 seconds. They were down 2-0 with 6 minutes to go in game 7. Rantanen scores 4 points. So they haven't even looked their best, and there's still so much yet to come. They're getting healthier. There's so much to look forward to in the playoffs, guys, but we have been very fortunate with all kinds of great games, and we are live playoff frenzy every single night here across multiple social networks on the Hockey News, Instagram, YouTube, X, LinkedIn, everywhere that you watch videos. You can find us. We are live. Ryan Kennedy, Andrew McGinnis, Michael Trakos signing off. And once again, guys, Stix.com, STIX.com. Don't forget to engage with us, and you might get a lucky chance to win yourself